Before we begin, the Gonzo genocide has been going on for nearly a year at the time of this recording. Below will be links to the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund and the Boycott, Divestment and Sanction campaign. Trust me, even a little bit you can do can really go a long way to help, even just agitating people on social media. You will be surprised. There is a slight conflict of interest in regards to the topic of this discussion. The Muppets are a property of the Walt Disney Corporation. And there is a debate about how much we need to kind of boycott Disney for their support of the Israeli government. For me, I go by what the BDS movement is pushing forward, and they consider Disney a pressure target in the same way that they do for Amazon and Google. That means if you can find something that is an alternative to that, you go towards that, because especially for companies like Google and Disney, they are basically too big to fail. And a lot of the things with boycotts is that they tend to make the task insurmountable, like, getting everyone all around to stop watching Disney products and stop giving them money, when in reality most people are not going to do that because they are so big compared to something like McDonald's, where that's not part of their official campaign, that is part of their grassroots boycott campaign. It's just not going to that restaurant. For Disney, it's a lot more complicated than that. So the only specific thing they bring up is the new Captain America movie, which has an Israeli superhero in the lineup. They are specifically saying to boycott that, and I will be doing so, and I will be pushing it down people's throats to not go see that film. If you include Disney as part of your boycott, I completely respect that. My intention is using the Muppets to relate to a broader topic that I am discussing. It's not specifically about convincing you to go watch them on a Disney platform like Disney Plus. I'm sure there are other means you can do to watch them if I convince you to go do so. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You get me. You get what I'm saying. You're very perceptive. I like that about you. If you want to discuss with me why Disney should be considered, you are completely free to drop a comment below, and I will happily respond and take your points into consideration. Just please be respectful about it, and to others who may take my stance on this. Anyway, on with the video. It's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights. It's time to meet the Muppets. I love the Muppets. I have loved them since I was a kid. I'm not exactly unique in loving them, but I just do. And it's always the eternal question of when you're into anything which has a long list of characters, and that's like, what is your favorite Muppet? And for me, it's like, I don't know, with the little brain cells that are active within here, whichever one is letting off synapses at that particular moment, that's probably my favorite Muppet, and that's aligning with it. But Gonzo, man, he really holds a special place in my heart. Art! 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 Gonzo has been performed since the Muppet Show by Dave Goelz, and he's the only Muppeteer from the original show that is still actively working on his characters, Gonzo being his signature one. One of the things distinctive about the Muppets, and this is the same for a lot of shows beginning of season 1, is that the characters were actually very different from how they ended up evolving as the show progressed. And this especially is the case for Gonzo. He actually started off as a performance artist with very low self-esteem, and he was just kind of the residential sad sack, until Goelz realized making him more excitable made him funnier and got a better reaction from the audience. So he gave him eye mechanisms that made the puppet more expressive, and we got our wide-eyed, devil-may-care little rebel as time went on. Part of that melancholy stayed, however, and a big part of this is how Gonzo felt out of place in this world. An example of this is the Wishing Song, which he performs in season 2. In the episode's plot, he falls for Madeline Kahn after she basically just gives him one little compliment, and he basically spirals into wanting to propose to her. When he overhears that she's not really interested in him, he goes into this existential spiral and wonders whether or not he'd be better off as somebody else. I mean, I feel ya, man. Honestly, the song is sweet, super emotional, and giving it to Gonzo, who feels more layered than the other Muppets to pull this off emotionality, this may have been what led him to sing another song later down the line. Let's pull back a bit. This video is about why we fight. And to get my broader point to this, I want to ask what makes the Muppets so special to people. What attaches them to us? For me, and I apologize for the pun here, it's variety. The Muppets can be anything. Animals, monsters, whatever, the fuck that was. But they are designated in a grouping of Muppet. So you have endless possibilities with the characters, all with distinctive, chaotic, yet fun personalities. Yet they are also treated as a corresponding animal or, well, monster. They are both Muppets and they have different subgrouping of Muppet, and the world reacts to them on this matter. This is mostly for comedy, of course, but we have instances like in the 1979 Muppet Movie where the villain wants Kermit to advertise his frog legs business, which is kind of fucked up, dude. You can argue, in some ways, that Kermit being in this position of being both frog and Muppet in this universe intersects. So to pretend that there's some political statement on the Muppets being essentially its own species in universe, it's really silly. This is mostly played for laughs, and you can't really argue they're specifically discriminated against for being puppets. Yet sometimes they can play with that dichotomy. The most notable example is the 2011 movie. A large part of that film is the Muppets feeling like outsiders when they are no longer useful or popular to the public at large, and are being swapped out by a different act by Tex Richmond. Or the way Walter's treated for being a Muppet, and how him and his brother essentially have separate identities due to the latter being human is actually a plot point. There are layers here, children. There are threads. Let's pull for fun. And I think one of the biggest ways this can be explored is through Gonzo, who is marginalized upon marginalization because he's a whatever. A running gag is that we don't know what Gonzo is until we find out he's an alien. But the fun part about the Muppets loopy, don't take too seriously continuity is that we're free to ignore that if we want to. So let's just do that. His insecurities and desires for a place to be accepted honestly have a lot more nuance when you take into account he's not just a Muppet, he doesn't know what he is within that space. And that's where we go into the movie. The 1979 Muppets movie is, by design, a very simple story. It's a look at a gang going to Hollywood to become rich and famous. It's there to allow them to do road trip gags and run into colourful scenarios that are loosely connected. And, having guest casts here and there for fun. It's almost like a big-scale version of the show without the variety constraint. However, they are highly motivated. Stripped away from these more material confines, it's a group of characters bonding together to achieve a goal bigger than them individually via their strengths and talents. I'm not saying it's a communist metaphor or something. I mean, they want to be Hollywood stars. I'm just saying that relatability comes into play here. Be it wanting to make others happy, having their dreams realized instead of getting jeered at, having the passion always in them to make it big, following their heart and their ambition. I mean, Rolf just kind of tags along, and they run into Electric Mayhem and later Bunsen, Honeydew, and Beaker, just very conveniently. But, they all have the same dream. We see their talents and desires and, how it combines into this ragtag group of dreamers. The songs really reflect this too. Rainbow Connection is about finding what's special in you and guiding yourself towards that. Moving Right Along is about pushing to that goal and getting ready as the journey is part of that process. Can You Picture That is about the fun, frivolity, and friendship made in part of being creative and sharing it with others. Never Before and Never Again, and I Hope There's Something Better Comes Along, is about relationships and the like. But it can be reflected on the partnerships we made along the way. What can bring you joy and what can bring you down through how complicated love can be. The finale ties us all up. It shows us that goal at the end of the rainbow when you see it all the way through. And then there's probably the best and arguably most important song of the film outside of Rainbow Connection. At least as far as I can see, I'm going to go back there someday. I think for Gonzo's uniqueness as a character, even amongst his friends, makes it important that he's one of the 3 characters to get a solo. Hell, Miss Piggy's song wasn't actually going to be a solo number, but Jim Henson thought it would be funnier if she sang it. And I mean, the others are harmonizing, but I'm not really counting that. It seems like splitting hairs. It's important that he took the lead here. He's the heart of the Muppets in a lot of ways. Why I think this helps me remember what the fight is that sometimes it feels like we are going back there. I don't think the song is literally about space, which is why I'm ignoring Muppets from Space, if you're wondering. It's about reaching a place that's within you that you want to make external. It feels like you're resetting it in a way for the back to the place where it made the most sense within you, what you fight for within your activism, even though realistically the world has probably never been to the place that your goals want to achieve it to be throughout the entirety of human history. It's a feeling, which this song is all about, where your feelings guide you. It looks familiar, vaguely familiar. Almost unreal yet, it's too soon to feel yet. Come and go with me, it's more fun to share. I feel this transfers into solidarity and wanting to take the world with us to this better place. Away from the world's inequalities, its bigotries, its poverty, its cruelty. It's close to my soul, yet so far away. Hell, this scene has a really nice sense of spiritualism to it. There's also the internalized Kermit conversation that he's having with himself. This film's great. It warms me in many ways more than just laughter. And the important thing is the rest joining in the harmonizing and the instrumentation as Gonzo reminisces about being completely at home in midair, referencing a scene from earlier on in the film. If there's one thing we strive for, it's taking everyone with us. Who joined us, who didn't. Everyone deserves to hold on to love like invisible strings. Maybe it's just to get your standard rich and famous contract, or you want to save the world from this neoliberalist hellscape. What's important is that the pigs and the frogs and the monsters and the whatevers do it as a unit. Why else are we fighting for? After all, life is a movie. Let's make our own ending. Keep believing. Keep pretending.
Camilla, your uncle's calling.